So I'm going to start again and welcome everybody to the second meeting of the Book Chat Club. Hoping this will work a little bit better than before. Happy to have everybody. I want to introduce myself. My name is Kim. I host the YouTube channel called Angry Soccer Mom. I also run a Facebook page, a bunch of other platforms, and do a Wednesday night live show and lots of free streaming. Tonight's book club will be geared towards Nails and Glitter, welcome, will be geared towards educating white people who want to learn about systemic racism and ultimately find their voice in order to use their white privilege to support equity. I want to introduce the panel, which I cannot thank them enough for their kind patience. Starting off with my friend Tim, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good. Happy to have you. And Roy, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
And I think my friend T is here. I cannot.
Yeah, I'm here.
She's here. Yay. Welcome, T. Thanks for being here.
Hello. Hello.
All right. Oh, this was so smooth and easy. No problem. After a summary, I'm going to just hand it over to the panel and have them talk about anything they can relate to or want to add from their personal experience, wisdom, etc. So what I'm going to start off with saying is, can everybody remember, if you're a white person and you're just trying to learn about racism and systemic racism, please remember that when we have people telling about their own life story, who are Black, Brown, Indigenous, African American, a mixed heritage, it is a gift to hear them share their wisdom and their experience, and it's a gift of enlightenment, and it is a privilege for us to learn from them. So the thing is, white folks have the privilege of being able to choose to read about this stuff and learn about this, but other people don't. They have to live it. So, and it's an additional burden. So I am very thankful. That being said, I want to start with 6 points of chapter 1. If you were not there for chapter 1. Chapter 1 in this book, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. It's amazing and it's filled with lots of stuff. So 6 quick points and we will continue on to chapter 2. First of all, from chapter 1, a review. White folks have historically looked at racial issues as a burden on Black people, not on white people. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind. American culture was created and is currently based on the human construct of white supremacy. Some of these things sound basic, but definitely important ideologies to understand. Number 3, we've been socialized to view other groups as racial, but not our own. 4, we have a simplistic understanding as white people. We have a very simplistic understanding of race, but we believe ours is equally knowledgeable to those who have studied in depth about race and racism and American history and American racial history. And we believe our understanding is equal to people who live it every day. And that's not true, but that's how we're raised to believe. And that's how we're enculturated as white people, is we think we know. What else can I say? 5, experiencing racial discomfort is one way we can move forward in the understanding of race, racism, and discrimination. And that can be painful. Last, it's important that white Americans build their stamina to hearing a critical examination of the white identity. So it is uncomfortable for us, but we gotta just hang in there. So that was chapter 1. In a very quick review, chapter 2. Chapter 2 talks about racism and white supremacy. And it goes very in depth, which I will not be doing because I could talk for 10 hours and I want the panel to be able to talk. So I will race through it and then we'll do the panel. First of all, the first point in chapter 2, many of us are falsely taught that there's a distinct biological and genetic difference between races, and it's not true. The differences we see or observe are superficial and are evolutionary adaptations over time in order to survive in specific geographical locations throughout the world. Race, the idea of race as a biological concept is easy to believe because we start to think it's natural, but like race and gender, it's socially constructed. It's not a natural phenomenon, but we accept it to the point where it is. To challenge the belief that race is based on biology, we have to understand the intense social and economic investment that got scientists to science to organize, and it was science, social science and hard science, to attempt to organize society and the resources along racial lines, and why it still endures today. And I'll explain. When the United States was formed, personal freedom and equity were radical ideas. We take that for granted now, but they were not normal, usual ideas. At the time, the US economy was based on the abduction and enslavement of African people, the displacement and the attempted genocide of indigenous people, and the annexation of Mexican land. So we were doing a lot of things to our fellow humans. But we were also starting a country based on personal freedom, equality. And so those don't really mesh. Tension between these noble ideologies and equality and the cruel enslavement and genocide and colonization had to be reconciled somehow. And how it was done was through justification. White folks had a huge economic interest in justifying the cruelty that we were doing. So race science was justified by economics and social interest, and it became the norm. Scientists didn't ask the question, are Black people and others inferior to whites? We didn't ask that. We asked the question, why are Black people inferior? Why? Let's figure out why. Let's scientifically figure out why they are. And the question in and of itself sets the tone for American culture. An important point the author makes in chapter 2 is that the idea of racial inferiority was created to justify unequal treatment, not the other way around. Belief in inferiority was not what triggered the unequal treatment. We needed to come up with something to close the cognitive dissonance in what we believed and what our actions were doing. In other words, exploitation came first, then came the ideology of unequal races to justify this exploitation. Consumers of these racist ideologies believe that something's actually wrong with Black people and that it's not the policies, it's the people. It's not the abuse that we have put upon them in law, it's just them. And as you obviously know if you're watching, that's absolutely ridiculous. Next, she talks about the perception of race. The first time the term white was ever used, because it was made up, it appeared in colonial law in the 1600s. When slavery was abolished in 1865, whiteness remained a very important point for the legalization of racist exclusion and violence against people who were formerly enslaved, humans who were formerly enslaved, and other white people. So white was a term that was used to legally allow inclusion or keep people out. To have the right to citizenship, you had to be legally, by a court, classified as white. But the law around this was created by white people. So there we have it. So because race is a social construct, who is and who isn't white has changed significantly over time. Who's considered white and who isn't. Because race is a product of social forces, it's also manifested itself in class lines. In fact, this is a crazy fact. Poor and working class people were not always seen as white. Economic and racial forces are nearly inseparable. I'll say it again. Poor and working class white people were not always seen as white. So this is a very interesting thing we have going. However, poor and working class whites were soon easily granted full entry into whiteness in order to exploit labor and other people who are not white. big shock. The idea was that if a poor white person were to focus on feeling superior to the people below them, deemed below them, that they wouldn't focus on the status of people who are above them. And racial divisions have served to keep groups from organizing against the owning class, or what we call the wealthiest elites today. Prejudice or prejudging is considered natural for all people. Stuff we learn from the world around us, and we try to tend to organize our thoughts and beliefs into categories to make it simpler. But here's the thing. Prejudice is the foundation of white supremacy, because it suggests that white people have racial prejudices, and we think this is a really bad thing. So instead of doing introspection, we just defend ourselves, like, we didn't do it, we didn't do it. Makes for lots of fragility. Discrimination is action based on prejudice. Most of us will acknowledge that we might feel uneasy around certain groups of people, but we attribute it to a naturally occurring phenomenon, and it is not. Out of our uneasiness comes from living separately while simultaneously absorbing information that's incomplete or erroneous about other groups. So prejudice that causes you to act differently, change your behavior, is discrimination. And the chapter has a lot to do with definitions, which are a little bit boring, but they're important to understand. So when one racial group's collective prejudice is backed by power of legal authority and institutionalized control, it's transformed into racism, which is a far-reaching system that functions independently from the intentions of or self-images of any individual. So structural oppression goes way beyond the individual person. Here's an example, and then we are almost done with this review of chapter 2 of White Fragility. Structural oppression is way beyond the individual. An example would be American women who struggled to gain the right to vote for suffrage. It illustrates how institutional power transforms prejudice and discrimination into oppression. Everyone has the ability to discriminate, but structural oppression goes beyond this. Women could be prejudiced and discriminate against men on an individual basis, but women as a group could not deny men their civil rights, but men could deny women their civil rights. They could do so because they controlled the institution. The only way women got the right to vote was men granting it to us. A racial group's prejudice is also backed by the institution. Racism is a system, and race and gender are very intersectional. In the example above, a white man might grant suffrage to women, but when they did so, they did not fully grant access to all women. Women who were Black were not labeled in the group that was going to be granted access for sure. They had to wait until 1965 to get their own legal access. The system of racism is reinforced through society from birth, in school textbooks, speeches, movies, advertisements, holidays, celebrations, words, phrases, legal, everything, pretty much everything. We are so consistently reinforced with this that we often find it as white people to just be natural the way it is, and that is not the case. A lot of ideologies force us to believe it's a naturally occurring thing, and it is not. The idea of individualism, the superiority of capitalism as an economic system, that democracy is a political system, consumerism, meritocracy, all makes us believe you just got to work hard and we're all equal. And if we're not, it's because you did something wrong. Instead of looking at the system, we rationalize the hierarchical, system as a natural order based on talent or genetics, or maybe you're just not trying hard enough. Those who don't succeed are just not capable, not talented, not working so hard. And I know we can all relate to that. According to academia and current best understanding of racism, and this is a point that a lot of people just lose it on. And, this is from academia. This is from experts in the field. The best understanding of racism according to the academia and the best understanding of racism, people who are Black, brown, and indigenous can hold prejudice, discrimination against white people, but they lack the social and institutional power that transforms their prejudice as a group and discrimination into racism. It's a system that has a power base. Whites have the social and institutional positions in society to infuse racial prejudice into laws, policies, and practices so that they seem like norms in society. Here's an example. A person who's Black or brown may refuse to wait on you in a shop, but they cannot pass legislation that prevents you from entering. They cannot pass legislation that makes it illegal for you to come in or to buy a home in a certain neighborhood. They do not have the power. They might hurt your feelings and be rude, but they cannot do anything on a systemic basis. Racism is a societally wide dynamic that occurs at the group level. So when we say only whites can be racist, we're referring to in the United States, because in the US, only whites have the collective social and institutional power and privilege over Black people and other people of color. White people like to see racism as a thing of the past. This is self-serving, and the truth is that quantitative racial disparities continue to exist and in many cases get even worse. Okay, they are increasing a lot of times and not decreasing. So organizations such as the Census Bureau, our own United States of America, our national government, the United Nations, the Metropolitan Project, nonprofits all over the place, the NAACP, the ACLU, the Anti-Defamation League, Amnesty International, and thousands of others have noted this and done very excellent research over time. White supremacy is the overarching political, economic, and social dominant system that describes the culture we live in and that positions whiteness as ideal. The naming of white supremacy as a system makes it visible and shifts the locus of change onto white people where it belongs. The challenge is to not be complicit and to make a choice as a white person to invest in a lifelong quest for anti-racism. So that is it. And I wanted to just ask the people who are in the panel if they have anything to add and what they want to talk about, because this is a lot, but it was theoretical as well. So Roy, what do you think? Any comments that you'd like to?
Sure. I wish you'd have went to T first. No,
T?
but I'll say that I've got a lot to say about that, because I'm glad that you brought up the fact that we are talking about American society and American culture, because if you were to go to other countries that were dominated by Africans or maybe either in South America, that social structure may be different, or even China or Japan, that may be different. Places where the European has not colonized, because we really, in order to understand this, you really need to go back to the beginning of the whole model around colonization. You know, the model around colonization, we're coming here to civilize the savage, so to speak, which simply meant that we want to Europeanize the way that the indigenous people were accustomed to living. So I want to introduce a book that some people may have read or some people may have not read, but I feel like if you have read the second chapter of White Fragility to get a deeper understanding of what's being talked about, you may want to refer to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who wrote the ISIS Papers. And in the ISIS Papers, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing talks about the fear of white genetic annihilation. So therefore, separating the races so the European would be able to genetically survive itself. Because once the European would integrate or intermarry or have interracial intercourse with the African or with the Chinese or with the Japanese or with the Aboriginal in Australia, they were no longer European. There was another gene that kicked in. So we're talking about going back to biology class here, where you talk about the dominant genes and the recessive genes. And so the genes in the African DNA would be considered the dominant gene. And so Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, I'm not doing her much justice with this brief explanation, but I want people to understand that there is I'm bringing this up for the psyche that's being explained here, because white men or in the white men in power convinced themselves that they were in danger of white genetic annihilation if they did not create certain social structures to preserve the European or white race, Caucasian race. I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Roy, I know from the beginning of people starting to, the segregation was all based on what you just said. We want to keep people separate, because if we don't, men and women will want to procreate together, and that will make it so that white isn't pure anymore. White is dominated over.
And in the modern political space, here's how Pat Buchanan is a person that brings that to life. And so anyone that's listened to Pat Buchanan, he was one of the conservative right-wing architects of the social policies that, talking about forced busing and school vouchers and, ways to separate white communities or white suburban communities from Black people. He was definitely one of those tough on crime people to work on ways to incarcerate Black people and brown people, because I believe that Pat Buchanan wrote the book called The Browning of America. And so in that, there's a lot of coded language, and one day maybe we'll get into I want to get into some of the other books that talk about some of this stuff too, because I think people need to understand that there are deliberate plans in place to disenfranchise groups of people.
Roy, I gotta jump in, because what you just said was so spot on. A lot of the white folks, and I'm one of them, when I was younger, I thought it was all just kind of like by chance. Like, I didn't realize when I was little, I was like, wow, why are people doing this? I didn't realize it was, because I didn't know that people could be this evil, basically. And so I was like, well, people aren't rotten like this, so why are they doing it? I didn't know it was a plan. As I got older, the older I got as a white person, I started going, this is on purpose. This is absolutely purposeful. This is not an accident. So T or Timmy, do you want to speak to? Great point.
Ooh, that was a lot to kind of take in. I'm trying to, that was a lot. You know what? I really don't like fallen geneticists, because there's no really such thing as race. There's a human race. And if white folks should die out and everybody's looking all brown and tan looking, then that's what it's supposed to be. Now, consciousness. Well, let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about Christians and how they became white and that kind of stuff. There was no white. You had Christians, you had Jews, you had Muslims. And for some reason, the Christians seem to be more on the European side of the house. And they were white. But if you were a Roman citizen, it didn't matter what color you were a Roman citizen. So the geneticists can mush out all that stuff, but when it comes to the United States, our consciousness was affected from slavery. And they had a movie called Birth of a Nation. And that movie was one of the most popular movies of its time. And it trained white folks to say, that's how Black people look. They want our women, they want to be government, and terrible things happened after that movie. Whites started just killing Black people. The Ku Klux Klan was the biggest as it ever was. It cemented the consciousness of white America. And we're feeling those effects today. And we have a name for it, and it's called white supremacy. And that's what we're living under. And it's not that overt, just racism with the murders and all the things that's happening in the United States. It's also happening behind the scenes in banking, environmental justice. We're feeling the pain. I can't imagine living in Detroit and my drinking water has 100%, not even 100%. It's like billions and millions of parts per million of lead. Yep. And these people are suffering. And white America thinks this is all the news. This is just a regular event. These things are not regular events in my life because it's affecting me.
They're not chance. Not by chance.
It's become the norm. You know, apple pie, hot dogs, and mass murder. What is that? Okay, we are a special breed, this country called America, as we fight for everybody else's rights throughout the world. But except for the people who are here, we don't get a break, okay? And we're constantly going through this. I'm going through a lot of business stuff right now, and I have to prove that I'm a Black company. And I'm working with a group called Office of Minority Business Enterprise. There's no Black people back there running that office. So white folks are determining whether I'm going to be in business or not going to be in business. And they said, now all we wanted, because COVID is rampant, so all they want is photos of my equipment, my office. Now we're talking COVID. We went from big office to tiny room office. So here we are. So now they want to see, they said if I was at the kitchen table, just send the photo. So we will see. But my hopes are high because I've been around a long time. And so those are the things that we're not seeing. So whiteness is, I don't think there's any power in whiteness. I think the only people that think there's power in whiteness is Black people. My people, I guess I'm talking for everybody, but I don't see power in whiteness. I see a lot of fragility. That's weakness, okay? They're not strong enough to relinquish their privilege. They don't have the power to say, you know, you're right. But they do say things like, well, maybe in the next 50 years, you'll be president. Well, maybe in this, like they give us timelines. And I keep saying, take back your timeline because we want this shit now. We want change now. Now, I hate to get too far off subject because you know I was going to kind of go into this. And because we just had some Asian women who were murdered recently in Georgia. And then what amazed me, and I don't know whether to be amazed or not, but America is eating this stuff so much that we're used to it. He said this man had a bad day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
You know, I had a bad day, and I had to go get counseling for it. And I sat down and said, you know, I had a bad day. And they gave me tools to deal with that day.
You didn't go murder like 8 people?
Say again?
You didn't go murder 8 people, is that?
No. Listen, matter of fact, I was told to hug people and make sure that my heart is on their heart so that we can beat in synchronicity. That's what I was told. And I used that tool and it worked. So I don't know why the police officers and the media would give him this protection. And then he had the nerve to have 2 Black officers with stars standing next to the white officer, the white supremacist officer. That was just so, because they don't have any Asians on the force. So let's bring out some Black folk and put them to the side. Because the Asians, listen, they need to join this fight with their black, brown brothers. They need to join this fight. Black Lives Matter means their lives matter. When we saw John Wayne shoot those Indians dead, you know, who he was really shooting? He was shooting us. He was shooting us. You know, the natives were us. And we couldn't see that. And that's what Black America has to be able to see that.
You know what?
So, you know, I think I'm rambling. So now I'm going to get a little longer.
Tim, you're great. Mahako just commented that absolutely, it's a fact that race. One guy blamed his racist rant on, you know, to these Black girls at school on diabetes. I mean, we'll do anything to cover up, make it look good. You know, this is definitely we want to keep the status quo. We want to make it about, you know, it's not about racism. Oh no, you know, and this is really telling. We don't want the secret to get out of what we're discussing. T, did you want to jump in and it's very topical. It's fine. Do you have anything to add?
Oh my God. Wow. I'm just amazed at what everybody just said. I'm going to more so give my analysis of what Tim and Roy just said. And I just kind of, my mind just kind of went even deeper. But you know, it's like, it is inherently evil to preserve whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as race. Why should it really matter the skin tone when it really, you know, when it boils all down to it? Somebody was evil enough to want to keep it, quote unquote, pure, as they say, which is why they are promoting this narrative of us being dirty, evil, bad, tainted, you know, all because of a darker skin tone. That's silly. And it all comes from an evil desire to maintain whiteness. And the funny thing is, no matter how hard you try, we will be a predominantly mixed nation. Like Roy, I think Roy was saying, you know, it is a dominant gene. Too bad, so sad. I mean, it's not going to be all white. It's just not scientifically possible, you know.
It's supposed to be that.
Right. So their efforts are futile. This is why January 6th happened. It's more about fear than it is power, you know, because it's like they are noticing that the world is not all about just white, you know, and that they need to learn to break out of that psyche that was put into them and to be, I don't even want to say accepting, because I feel like that's even, that to me, that's even offensive. Accepting, I don't need you to accept me, but you know what, you get where I'm going.
Celebrate.
They need to be, you know, we are all humans, you know, and this whole idea of wanting to preserve a whiteness has just taken, I mean, it's really taken off. It's like someone said, it is what's the word? I'm losing my word here. Intentional. It was intentionally placed in people's mindsets to be that way. But it's all fear-based. Somebody was, for some reason, afraid of whiteness going away. And that's what this all boils down to. It's like white supremacy. And I mean, even the whole supremacy thing is really, yes, you know, we have white supremacy, but where does white supremacy come from? Fear of losing whiteness. And that's the only reason why they created this whole, oh, we got to be supreme. Oh no, we got to make sure that, you know, and it's like, at the end of the day, what does it even matter? So all these crazy fake lies and stereotypes are created. You know, these black people are this way and black people are that way. And we're looking like, say, what? You know, as
Go ahead.
only black people are want this particular way. Like the one guy I was telling you about, Kim, earlier, you know, and it reminded me of what Trump said when he's like, you know, when he was talking about how your schools are bad and you're this and that. And this guy told me, you know, I'm like, wait a minute now. I know some white people whose schools are bad. Why don't we go there? Why do you always got to put it like all black people got bad schools? All black people got, you know, bad upbringing. All bad people got, I mean, I said bad, I'm sorry. Black people, bad
That's black people.
upbringings. All black people see shootings around their neighborhood. I've never experienced shootings. What? It's just, I get blown away when people say that crazy stuff to me because I'm like, what in the hell are you talking about? I have never experienced that in my life.
Nothing, right.
Oh, I'm black, so I must be. Oh, okay. I must be somebody who. I mean, it's the silliest thing, but that is the lie that has been put into them, and this is why it's so hard to get people to break away from that mindset. You know, it's really sad. I don't. It just keeps coming to me because it is sad that that lie or those lies have been perpetrated and infiltrated in these people's minds for so long. It has really caused so much damage, you know, and it's mind blowing to me that people actually believe that. It's like, you really believe that because somebody looks different than you, that they're bad? You really believe that? Let's break it down to the real preschool level. Oh, she looks different. She's bad. You know, I mean, I'm a pre-K teacher. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking to my pre-K children about, and they get it. How much more should a grown-up get it? You know, hey, we don't treat people bad because they might look different or their hair's different. I mean, that's just sad and it's sickening to me. But that's my current thoughts. I'm going to stop there because I'm going in. I'm about to, you know.
This is why it's important to understand the origins of a lot of these theories and misconceptions.
Yes.
And it reminds me. I mean, and this is how I'm going to give you the source of where it started. Back to Johann Blumenbach, you know, who was a German anthropologist. And for those that may be familiar, you know, he studied the skulls of, you know, the European, the Ethiopian, the Mongolian, considered Chinese, and I believe the American, which was the indigenous people, and I'm missing one, but there were 5. Malaysian.
Mongoloid. Yeah, the other was, they called it Mongol.
Right. And he said that the Caucasian had the most handsome skull. Therefore, it was the most intelligent and therefore superior.
Scientific racism.
Yeah. So this is based. So a lot of this white supremacist ideology is based on faulty social science or anthropological theory that's unfounded.
Some opinion.
Do you want to say anything?
Okay. All right. Okay. Listen, that was the scholars of their day. Their scholars knew better than that, but they said what they said. And but today we understand that that's not true by any means. So why are we still behaving like it is? And it's always dangerous when these folks come with this geneticist saying that this feet, that foot, you're tall, you're black because you're this. That's what keeps us there. Why do we have, we are all intellectual when it comes to this, and we know better. Listen to these people. They were quacks then, and they're quacks today. And quacks are just quacks, okay? I don't believe If your sperm is big and strong, that's fine. But remember, there is no such thing as race. Say that 3 times and you'll believe it, okay? And then you can kind of go on in a different direction. But as long as you think there's a master and a superior piece, there's some sort of, there's something wrong with the psyche when you think that there's something greater than you. There's nothing greater than you. Well, if you're religious, you can say there is a higher power. But men, you have to understand that. But if we keep going to the geneticists, that's where Hitler went. Hitler did the same thing. He took people who were handicapped and had different geneticism. And where did they get that from? The United States. We were already doing it. Susan B. Anthony, don't fact check me on this one. But there was a woman back in the 1920s that kind of used birth control as a method to control the races.
You're talking about Margaret Sanger.
Margaret Sanger, who was a eugenicist.
I got you.
Thank you. So these people are always dangerous. Thank you. That's all I have with that one.
But this is why I'm just bringing up these names and these studies to share. This is what was introduced, and this is what got institutionalized in society to make people to say that's the truth. We're saying it's false. We know it's false. Technology has taught us it's false. History has taught us it's false. Science has taught us it's false. But many people are still hanging on to these false narratives just because they make them comfortable.
Right. And chapter
but we're adopting them. Black folks are adopting these narratives. I grew up, I was 12 years old. My uncle took me to the mosque number 6 in Harlem. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was there. I want to say Farrakhan was there, Muhammad Ali. And they were talking about how whites were genetically inferior. Now, I'm not going to dispute any of those things because I'm not a geneticist and I'm not a doctor. But I've heard these words before. And these words are throughout history to go and abuse other races of people and making them animalistic, making them savages, cannibals. And it's the same old human brain talking. And I'm hearing it today in modern time. And I dispute that because what I do believe that there's good in men. And that can come out once we understand each other and build relationship. Now, I'm not a politician, but I do believe in people, all right? And I believe in Americans can get rid of that fucking privilege, excuse my language, get rid of that privilege, but they have to be able to surrender it. And they don't want to give that up because that's all this is all about. It's that privilege.
Yes. And I agree, Tim. I like when you were talking about the basically like the whole white supremacy thing, or like that creates a victimhood, and I'm not a victim.
Thank you.
I just feel like I never lived my life, feeling like, oh, these white people did this to me. I mean, yes, as a system.
It's not fair.
In America, yes, they created this whole system and they're not being fair to us. But I myself do not see white people as above me. It just is not something that me personally, that I have grown up with. And I guess, Kim, to explain to you why I was not necessarily offended from that group today, that Facebook group, is because it's laughable. I know that it's just those things I'm none of those things that they're saying. So it's like, these idiots actually believe this stuff. You're on there saying all this stuff about me. And I'm like, I know that I am honestly more intellectually, what do you call it?
Intellectually focused. You're more academic than them. I mean,
than they are. So to me, you just look stupid. I mean, you could call me everything you want out of the book, but I'm not a victim.
Right.
And honestly, and I don't go around saying this, but you know, most of them idiots, I probably make more money than, have a better lifestyle than anyway. But they wouldn't think that. But you know how it is. They want to create this fantasy that they are somehow higher up than me. When I'm like, I got more money than you. I got more. Not that it's about money. You know, of course, we're all. You know, I don't care about that. But my point being is that who are you to look down on me when you're no better than I am? I mean, we're just all the same.
And you know,
I think what you're saying to you is that using as a measure. A lot of times we use money as a measure. We use education as a measure. We use our quality of life as a measure. And you know, if you have your own home, or if you have your own space, your own car, compared to someone, you know, that may have to catch the bus or ride a bike, nothing against that. But you know, or compared against somebody that's living in their parents' basement, and you know, they're fit, you know, but I get what you're saying. And many of these people will think that just because of the color of their skin, that something about that makes them inherently better than anybody else that is not of the color of their skin. And you know, once again, I'm going into the history of a lot of this ideology and where it came from. And it's important. Tim brought up Christianity and the Europeans. See, one of the things that many people, and Tim, I thought you were going here, so let me help you close that loop. Because the Crusades were some of the most brutal time periods in history, to where people were literally dismembering people, murdering people, maiming people in the name of Jesus Christ, to convert to either Catholicism or some form of Christianity. So these methods were used until I believe it was the Moors that pushed them back and even defeated many of these Christians in Spain. And that's why you see some of the Spanish have a little darker tint, because they were conquered up into Europe. And therefore, Christianity went into the German spaces, or the more Nordic spaces within Europe. And so all of that, but all of that has a history. All of that is, we're still in a continuous war. Right? We're still in a continuous crusade. We're still in the Civil War hasn't ended. We're still fighting a lot of these fights that got started, and people are holding on to old ideologies. That's what we're up against right now.
I want to jump in for a second. Absolutely. And part of the whole supremacy thing in chapter 2, understanding white supremacy, and like you're saying, Roy, the history and what's really going on is we are still trying to emotionally deal with, as white people, the dissonance, the cognitive dissonance of what we have done, what we are doing, and what we want to continue doing. And to do this, we have to, still 2021, we have to make it so it's okay. And in order to do this, it's the same thing as we did before. We have to make us somehow superior.
Yeah.
We have a justification. And the problem with that is that's not superior. That's being superior is when isn't being cruel and evil and greedy. Being superior is when you're loving and humanistic. And it's our values. We've I can't say we've always, that's what our country was based on. And so white supremacy is forever trying to be justified by white people. And it's ridiculous because it's totally made up.
It is. It's totally made up.
It's completely made up. Yet like chapter 2, just we will do anything to, like the people you were talking to, they were saying stuff that like I haven't heard, and like such antiquated stuff. It's like, dang.
But I knew that's where they are. I knew that's where they were. Mentally, I just knew it. And I think that's why, because I know that they are just not there. There's that, the educator in me wants to teach
Ignorance.
them.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
yeah. But the thing is, it's like, it's almost like, okay, let me teach you. Kind of. That's my mindset. So I didn't even think, oh, they're hurting me or my feelings
I'm
or
glad.
making. I wasn't even, that was the furthest from my mind. My mind was on, okay, let me educate you about this, because you're promoting something. Do you not realize you're promoting something that does not make sense?
Right. It's
All in the name of trying to preserve something, and it's really not a big deal if you don't preserve it. I mean, it's like,
right.
what's the big deal? What's the big deal? So it was more interesting to me to engage in these conversations with these people and to really hear the asinine comments they were making, and to really, it's like, oh my God, this is what these people actually are believing. Like I said, what planet are they coming from to actually believe this stuff?
Desperate planet to justify.
Weird. It's like, it's just weird to me, because I just don't think on that level. I'm very intellectual. And so when I'm talking to people and they come from that area, it's very hard for me to come all the way down and really, of course I can meet people where they are, but when it's an adult and the way they're talking is so elementary, it's like, what? You're still
like
there?
Child. It's like they're a child. Yeah.
Yeah. You're still hung up on that. You're still in that space. Like, you haven't evolved yet. Like, what? So it's hard for me to. So I have this urge to want to teach because of that. Okay, and so that's what that was. And I didn't care. You can call me whatever you want to call me. I know who I am. I don't. You're not going to influence me any one way or the other. I mean, I appreciate the people who stood up for me, but I could, I don't.
Yeah,
my validation comes, right, exactly.
I'm kind of lost on that one.
Well,
what's going on?
We're talking about
kind of faded out.
We're talking about a conversation. Go ahead, T.
Oh.
No, go ahead.
We're talking about a conversation that T made me aware of, and I jumped in, and I know I was saying, wow, I was personally, as a white person jumping in, my first impression was I was very appalled by their rudeness.
Right.
To the Black women that were talking. They were incredibly rude. They were incredibly arrogant, and they were displaying some very, very extreme and kind of archaic, like, antiquated, it could have been Klan talking. And I just hadn't heard that in so long. And as the conversation went on, more and more came out. And I just was kind of in awe of T's ability to be patient with these people who clearly were not there to learn. They were there to disrespect, and they were there to be right.
Right.
And so it was kind of interesting, because I don't personally, I can't work with people that are that low on the anti-racism. I can't, because they're not there to listen or learn. They're not there to do anything. They're
right.
So
well, they got to read the rules, and then.
Well, it wasn't my group. It wasn't my group. It was. It was something else.
Okay.
It was a Facebook thing I had commented on a Facebook post.
Okay.
People just went crazy and lost it. I triggered a lot of white folks, and they lost it.
Very good. Very good.
I just kind of said what I was thinking, and
good job, T.
And I think the biggest thing I said was white people, and that's what it was.
Everybody's sensitive on the color thing. Good job. If they're uncomfortable, that means they are learning. So you did a great job. Thank you.
Yeah,
I applaud you on that one.
Thank you.
Right.
We ended up,
That's the way it is.
Tim, we ended up talking about earlier when I was doing some free streaming about T and I were chatting that we basically have come to the conclusion some people are really just not there to learn. They're there to be right. They're there, like in chapter 2, to justify
That's
their
right.
absolute ignorance and, to try to close the gap of cognitive dissonance. They know they're not good people, that they know they're morally bankrupt doing what they're doing. And so they're desperate to, just like long ago when we made up the word white, and we decided who was white and who wasn't white. And we decided that people would make laws based on who was and who wasn't white. And the
laws are still in place. The
Institution.
laws are still there in place. And that's why I'm here, because I believe we have to change policy, because we just don't know we're not going to go around killing people. We're not going to fight that way. All we have is to vote and to change policy. We can arm ourselves and be a stand my ground and watch who goes to jail, so the law is still against us. But I do see this country coming together, and white folks are going to be there, but they're not going to be in charge, because the world doesn't look that way in real life. It doesn't look that way. So financially, there's white power in this country. Financially, but we also have Black money power. I just wish they stepped forward, like the Oprah Winfreys of the world, and some of them are, and some of them are in a great way. The princess and the duke is staying at a Black person's property. We had to take in the royal family. So there is what was that gentleman's name? Where they're living? Does anybody know?
Tyler Perry.
Yeah, they're living at Tyler Perry. So that's what the world is going to be looking like, in my mind.
Well, Tim, I want to jump in because in chapter 2, I didn't get to this, but in chapter 2, she points out some of the racial breakdowns of the institutions. And these numbers are from 2016-17, but they really are pretty consistent. And I think it's great that, that you feel like things are changing for a lot of people, but the stats are not really backing that up as well as it could, or at least not as much as it could be.
No, nothing has changed.
Yes,
I'm not saying anything has changed. I don't think nothing has changed. We have to change things. We know that we can put a dent in the system. We have to do that. We have to go in and ask for policy change.
I'm speaking.
And it's one city, one community at a time. It's not happening all at once for us. But if we take over what is ours, you can call it reparations, because we're going to be having that discussion. You can call it what you want. But when they realize that Black people, we love our environment, we want to breathe air, drink clean water, we want housing, we want these things as well. And my thing is, why would you keep it out of our hands? And I can answer my own question, but it's almost like they're keeping that out of our hands, because that's what the power is in the money. If financial power will as a group will get us together, but otherwise,
what I was
this is what we're dealing with.
I mean, what I was speaking to was what you said about, that we do have money. You wish that there are, but it's very far and few between, because of the white supremacy and the institutionalized racism that has been kept in check. And although you're right, there are some very wealthy Black people and people of color, but it compared to what there should be, if Black, brown, Indigenous people were allowed to, by the system, have equity and have the ability, unhampered, to have generational wealth accumulation. And what she's saying, so I might have misunderstood you, but what she's saying is that the 10 richest Americans are 100% white, and 7 of them are the richest in the world. U.S. Congress, 90% white. U.S. governors, and this was in 1617, And I know that there's been a concerted effort by Biden to change that governmental, but in general, these are still true. Top military advisors, 100% white, president and vice president at the time, 16, 17, that's actually not true. I don't know why she has that, because we did have Obama by then, but U.S. Freedom Caucus, 91%. You know, these stats, people who decide what to watch on TV, 93% white. People who decide what books people should read, 90% white. People who decide what news is covered, 85% right, and improving a lot because of the awareness. So some of these things, you know, top movie and film, 95% white. Teachers, 82% white. College professors, 84% white. You know, and part of this is, and it's not like all the rest are Black. They're a mix of many, many different cultures. And I guess the bottom line is from chapter 2 that white folks need to understand this was purposefully done, purposely made up, fabricated. And instead of realizing that we are fabricating this, we're just, and that it's absolutely inappropriate and wrong, we're still doing it. It's like,
well, that's what whites don't want to give up that privilege. They're not giving you not 1 inch, not 1 bit, none for you. And I know they're not going to be fair. So I have to go head on in. I can't wait for, you know, different caucuses to save me or anyone. And I would like, you know, when I work with my Black men that come out of prison, I have to instill confidence in them that they can go back out there and become something. And what you just said, these statistics, you know how I feel about statistics sometimes. I think they're made by white people, and white people put in statistics. White people will tell you that people want to marry them more because they're white. They'll tell us that in statistical ways, but I don't see that in real life.
Right.
You know, what I see is when I watch these African programs, I see beautiful men, beautiful women. I see them married, they have children, they believe in their father and they believe in their mother. And it's just amazing to watch that. Here in America, it's like the state is raising our Black women, you know, and separating Black men and women from one another. It is the most unusual place you can ever live in this country. But I'm trying to stay on task here.
So I was about to say, I think you are on a tangent.
Yeah, always.
You know,
go ahead.
away from, because let's go back to page 31, because I think it's important to deal with the statistics as they have been presented. As we talk about wealth, as we talk about opportunities, as we talk about resources, you brought up reparations. And see, the thing is, you know, people will say all the time, we don't have the money, you know, to deal with the issue of reparations or income inequality, but we'll spend $70 billion to send a robot up to Mars, you know.
For war, right. Or for
but that's true, but we won't spend in our own community. And that's the deal.
This is my point. So that's systematically, so this is a systemic issue.
We have the money.
Everyone has to be involved in at some point in time. This just doesn't impact Black people. This impacts everybody. And
absolutely
poor white people, because there are probably more poor white people than there are, and this goes back to T's point.
Yeah.
Absolutely more poor white people than there are probably Black people in the whole country. So the point is, when the government mismanages its funds and its resources, it hurts everybody. And unfortunately, you still got a lot of these poor white people that are voting for people that do not do anything for their best interests.
Right. They're voting against their best interest.
Always.
And it is right back to chapter 2, because at least they might be doing horribly and struggling, but at least they're not Black. And that is so, I don't even know how to explain it. Archaic. I don't know what to say.
So stupid.
It benefits somebody that can. It benefits people. Okay, so that it works because
you know what, Tim, honestly,
white
it benefits their psychological mind and nothing else.
nothing
They are
else.
not getting richer. They are not doing better. They are not accumulating generational wealth themselves. They are getting, we as whites are getting poorer and poorer, and the wealthiest elites
That's right.
are getting wealthier and wealthier, and they thank us for our service. We as whites service them by keeping systemic racism alive, so the white folks who get what's happening never join up with all of the people who are not white and say, you know what? We don't have a black problem here. We have a white problem in America. We got a wealthiest elite white problem here in America. But we'll never do that because, you know, they've got us all thinking, yeah, we're so, I mean, it's just psychological baloney, like we had mentioned earlier, but we're still doing it.
So the question has
It feels good.
The question has to come up. What would make a white person really want to address this? What is the point to saying, hey, I've been on the wrong track. Let me, backtrack. Let me start over. Let me get some perspective. What is the proverbial come to Jesus moment?
When they start killing each other, when white folks start killing each other deliberately, like they can go into Asian spots, they can go into black churches, they can go anywhere, gun down people. When they killed those people in Vegas,
does it have to be that extreme?
When it's only bloodlust here. I can't explain it any other way. It's always carnage, apple pie, hot dogs, apple pie, and mass murder. That's what America is selling today. I don't know what to say. But even when they kill each other, they buy more guns. So
yeah, exactly. I was hoping we can get a less extreme argument or presentation, because I don't think Kim has shot anybody yet.
Yeah, not yet.
No.
Well,
no, but
yeah.
When they stormed the White House, that's what they were asking for. More of the same. So I don't know. We can't come to Jesus.
But that wasn't the question for you, because you can't answer. You're not a white man.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could, give a shot. Would you kind of rephrase the question once more? And I will, if you can.
I mean, what I'm saying is in Robin DiAngelo's book, and then as we're talking about white supremacy and racism, what can make a white person read this and begin to accept it? At what point? And I know where Tim is going with it. I get it.
Absolutely.
But hell, even with the Civil War, after the Civil War, there were it turned into the lost cause. They flipped the loss around.
Oh God.
To
black code,
justify what they believe.
Oh, absolutely. It was, once the 1877, the Compromise of 1877 took place, we pulled all the soldiers out of the South because that little deal we made was the worst thing that ever happened to newly emancipated black people in their entire lives. It was absolutely criminal because everything ended. The troops weren't there to say, no, the South, you're going to follow what's right. And they left and all hell broke loose. And that's a horrible thing. I can answer your question. For me, I think when push comes to shove, people in general have a quest for the truth. And I might be wrong, but I think the cognitive dissonance in our subconscious that comes along, it's an emotional toll living a lie. We live a lie. And I can't speak for anyone else, but we live a lie as white people when we do not absolutely explain our willingness and have a willingness to educate ourselves about our real racial history and the truth about racism in America. And we're living a lie. And once you can get a white person to kind of catch on, wow, I've been fooled. And it's a very difficult thing to take, because you haven't just been fooled by one person. You've been fooled. Your parents, your teachers, every single person you've ever loved or known. And that's a pretty heavy thing. And with all this, you've been fooled by society, you've been fooled by history, you've been fooled, my God, your history books, the media, you've been played the fool.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take, but once you just, I don't know, anyway, people are like me, I don't know. Once you get a little taste of, it's like, okay, I'll just put it like this. Hope no children are listening. Once you learn that Santa Claus, you learn the whole Santa thing, and then you're like, damn. And you start thinking, you're like, oh my God, the Easter Bunny? Oh, the Tooth Fairy? No, the Tooth Fairy. Oh my God. It's like, it's human nature, and I hope it is, I could be wrong, to have a quest for closing the cognitive dissonance gap. And that's all I can say.
You guys want to buy that?
And that, well, I can say I see that but it depends on the people. It has to be people who are willing to find truth. And when you search earnestly for the truth, and that's in anything, you're going to start to change. You're going to start to be open to be taught. You're going to humble yourself, and you're going to allow somebody to show you, I guess, the error of your ways or whatever. But you're going to be at a place where you can actually see. But you have to be a person who wants the truth bad enough. And I think a lot of it is they love the lie. It's nice. It feels good. It
so segregated too.
That ego. Just like, okay, I'm about to call something out. I'm going a little left, but it's still within the same thing, within the same conversation. Okay. I'm right here looking on my phone. I got my iPad here and I got my phone. Okay, so I'm looking on YouTube at the comments, and here I see this person, Ramses. I don't know who he is. And it's something, I don't know what he's talking about, but he's like, I totally disagree. I would love for him to kind of come on. What do you disagree about? We're talking about factual information. I don't know if he's a white guy. I don't know. But this is a platform. This is not an agree to disagree type of situation. I mean, I don't understand that whole thing. We're just talking about facts. So what are you disagreeing with? And therein lies the problem. When you're dealing with folks who talk about, I disagree, they don't want to hear it. You can't work with people like that. Why are you here if you want to disagree with the truth? I mean, I don't understand that. I know I'm kind of going a little deep with that, but
he was specific with something you said, or somebody said. He was very specific.
Okay, maybe that's what it was, but that's not the first time that I saw him on here. You're kind of seeming like he's not really with us. And so my question is to Ramses, why are you here? Like, are you, and I'm not to get all in your business because it's not my, I just like, I don't want everybody all up in my business. He probably, or she probably doesn't want that. But to me, it comes off as a white person who is not really, they're listening in, but they really are not fully not engaged, on board with really becoming a person who wants to learn and change and understand this. Now, I could be wrong, so please don't crucify me all on the thread.
No, I know. You know what's interesting? To be honest with you, T, you're gonna laugh. I don't check up on people whether they're black, white, whatever, but I think Ramses has followed what I do for quite some time. I think he is a black male, actually, and I could be absolutely off.
Okay, so I could be wrong, but I was like, huh? And maybe he was, like you said, he was responding to something specific. It's not, but I don't understand when it's about truth. When it's about truth, you really can't say I agree or disagree. I don't know. But I guess if you're in a deep conversation about a specific aspect of it, and someone throws in their opinion right there, there might be, but
let me shed some light on this, and I'll just be super honest because that's what we're here for.
I kind of went down a rabbit hole a little bit.
No, you're good. What you're saying is absolutely an extremely valid and true observation. I feel the exact same way you do. A lot of times when Ramses makes comments, he is completely, he reminds me of what a white supremacist would say. You know, in fact, a few people have actually said to me, "You really think that guy's a black guy? You think I bet it's a white person?" And I said, "I don't think so. I don't know." And that's the funny part about being, on the internet. You don't know. But he has followed me for quite some time, and he is continuously bringing up things that sound like somebody who was very racist would say, and it's been very confusing to me.
That's how it comes off to me.
Yeah,
and that's
you're not wrong, but
yeah. I just on a discussion like this, where we are here to teach, and we are here to share, the real deal, the truth about things. It kind of, it's like, what do you mean disagree? Like, that's just where my mind went. Like, what do you mean disagree? This is not a matter of agreement or disagreement. It's like a professor giving their, lesson. The student doesn't say, "Oh, I disagree." I mean, I don't, especially if it's like something like historical in,
you're
in
talking
nature.
about like in science, when the Trump supporters were saying, we don't believe in science, we're like, what? You can't, how do you not believe? We didn't even know you could disagree. You don't, it's like, I know exactly what you're saying.
Nails and Glitter just said he disagreed with the comment that there was no superior race, implied that black was superior.
Yeah, that's what I thought he was talking about, Nails and Glitter. Thank you. He was disagreeing with a very specific thing, and he was actually disagreeing with when we said there's no superior race. And I thought he was implying that actually black people are the superior race. I think if only we had him here to tell.
Ramses, come on the thread and explain what you were saying, so that we're not thinking something else.
Yeah, and
it was kind of confusing.
And T, for me as a white person, it is not my place to tell any black man, even if I disagree 100% with what he's saying, like he's acting like a white supremacist in my mind. That is not my place. So I've had a very tenuous relationship with him because he has I cannot use my white supremacy to dominate his beliefs, as much as I don't get them sometimes. So I'm in a real bad spot, but you calling them out, thank you. Because I think
I just think on something like this, we need to be very clear, because, we're trying to prevent these, what do you call it? These narratives that have already been, and for me, it's like, all right, let the truth be spoken. That's just the way I am. It's like, okay, let's dispel all the lies. So I just want to make sure that everything is clear.
I appreciate that.
I
absolutely appreciate that. Roy, what do you think?
Once again, this is why it's important to be able to get to the root of the argument. And this is why I brought up the name. I name names. I want people to be able to look it up. I don't have time to go into everyone's theory or theoretical models or scientific findings or claims. But if you really want to dig deeper into these discussions, then you got to do your own homework. So there are a number of conversations that have been happening for well over a century around this. And once again, I think it's important for Black people, Black scholars, Black theologians, Black historians to be able to introduce their concepts, because let me say this too. This is probably the first period in time in America's history to where Black intellectuals can begin to address some of the misconceptions without direct physical retribution.
Absolutely, to their lives. Look at these books. They're by Black people. most of them.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah,
That's gonna burn
unfortunately,
it down.
great
yeah,
point.
unfortunately, many of our scholars have been silenced. I mean, let's look at some of the more public, when you look at Medgar Evers shot in his driveway, Martin Luther King assassinated in Memphis, Malcolm X
Malcolm X.
assassinated in Harlem, Fred Hampton, we just talking about Judas and the Black Messiah, killed in his home in Chicago. Anybody that's Black and stood up to the powers that be,
Get killed, gets assassinated.
yeah. So you're not gonna have a whole lot of people willing to just run up at the system to challenge it and dismantle it and destroy it. Many of us are gonna try to find a way to survive within it.
That's an excellent point. Thank you.
That's true.
And also, I think probably more than ever, despite the incredible divide that we have, it's basically the people who want the truth and the people who want nothing. They want nothing to do with the truth. It's kind of the divide in my mind. People who want to be, they want to get it, they want to understand, they want to learn, they want what's real, and then the 73 point something people who absolutely do not want it at almost any cost. Nowadays, I'm seeing so many more, and it's slow, white folks having a conversation and learning from Black people and brown people who live this, who have had to survive this. So by definition, they are experts in this area. And I've had mentors that have mentored me like I will never be able to thank them enough. I will never, because they were patient with me and they helped me. And now it is time for white folks. We don't have a Black person problem in America, okay? We have a white person problem, and we need to shift it and stop expecting our non-white people to deal with our ludicrous, made-up system and start saying, you know what? I'm going to take some personal responsibility. I didn't cause it. I didn't create it, but I'm living it and I'm benefiting from it. And I'm done with it. This ends with me. And you know what? You get a bunch of people doing that and they go out and educate 2 people and so on, not to be heroes, not to be leaders, to act like a freaking human being. It's not going to come from top down. The wealthiest elites they benefit from racism. They're not going to help us. It's going to have to be a grassroots thing, And boy, these lies that we have made up so long ago are still it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Anyway, I'm blabbing. Anyone else want to make any?
Well, this is what when I meet, white folks for the first time and I don't know them that well, I ask them, do you have any Black friends? And if you're a white woman, do you have Black girlfriends? Because that means a lot. They used to make a joke about Biden, at least he hung out with a Black dude for 8 years, so he heard those private conversations, because we have those kind of conversations. It's not always tit for tat, but if you build a relationship with me and you know me and you sit and you break bread with me, it changes things. And so that's what I asked them, because I have to go about my day, and I have to have interaction with white folks all the time. And I stop thinking what they think about me, because hopefully when they see me, they see a Black man. And I don't care whether they want to criminalize me or fantasize me, or it doesn't matter. When I walk in there, they see a man. I represent my community when they see me. Even on the negative side, it doesn't matter. I work in an environment where I can't avoid having contact with white folks who think they're better than me. And so, and as far as I'm concerned, that makes them really fragile. But do you have somebody other than white in your life, or are you having any dealings that way they will understand? That's all I have. It's getting late for me, guys.
And Tim, one of the coolest posts I ever posted, and it wasn't mine, it was somebody else's. I can't remember exactly who it was, but it kind of speaks to what you're saying. Is it said, and I'm not into this. Like, I have a black friend. If you have a black friend and you don't get this stuff, you don't have a black friend. You have an acquaintance that's black.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm sorry. If you have a true friend, then something's going down that's not right. Or you just know a black person. No offense.
Yeah. Just to expand on Tim's point, I think that's very valid because being able to break bread, being able to share space, intimate space in a person's home with a person's family, I've told some of my white friends and acquaintances, I said, I'll know our level of relationship when you leave your kids with me.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
If you want to leave your kids with me at my house, I know.
Yeah, cake, candy, ice cream.
Right, that says it all.
Let me babysit them.
You let me baby? Right. Oh God, spoil them. But yeah.
Absolutely. Oh no, we'll have fun.
We'll have a good time, but they'll learn about Marcus, Malcolm, and Martin.
That's right. We be watching Black Panther movies.
Right.
Right. That's so funny because that could be the reason a lot of. I'm just wondering why this one mom of one of the kids never lets her. I think I know why now. I think we just little epiphany. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Because that's what we do here. And yes, she is going to hear everything, and she is going to hear the truth. And I think that might. Okay. Well, now I know. Okay. Sorry. Thank you for that. But
very telling. It's very telling. Because, and this is the thing. What are you talking to your kids about? What are you, especially as we talk about race? Do you just sweep it under the rug and hope they figure it out? Because they will. They will observe your pattern. They'll see you clutch your purse when a white person a black person walks by, or they'll see you, lock your doors in a certain area, or they'll see
bad neighborhood. No, that's a bad neighborhood.
Right. They'll hear that. They'll pick that up. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah. This stuff. This stuff is. There's no neutral. There's no neutral. And if you allow neutral, what you're going to get is what we just talked about in chapter 2, the push and the pull to believe in white supremacy. And it's really intense. It's really intense.
It can be, yeah.
They pick up if you listen to Macklemore over Kendrick Lamar.
My daughter, what's funny? My kids walk in here and I'm like, They see who I'm talking to. I don't say, oh, look, I'm talking black. But little kids' eyes are watching.
They understand.
Absolutely.
Right. You should let them sit in on some of your shows.
In America,
you only knew what you're.
Yeah, they've done the doll thing already, so we know they're conscious.
No, my kid's off the activists. It's insane.
Hold on, Tim, talk about that. That's very important. Talk about the doll study. That's very important. Dr. Kimberly Clark.
Absolutely.
Very important.
But actually, Kimberly specialized in that, but they did the doll study. And obviously, here in America, our children thought the white doll was prettiest, and that the black doll was not only prettiest, but bad. They fast forward and showed a black man and showed Timothy McVeigh. And they said, who's the bad man and who's the good man? They said Timothy McVeigh is the good man and the black man was a bad man. And the children even know why they were saying that. And it was just, and they act like they just knew that to be right.
Well, they do.
But then they also did it in Africa. Mm-hmm. And they had Barbie and they had, and that was, hey, that's an American thing. Okay.
Help to perpetuate that. And the study that you're talking about is an old study that was used in a Supreme Court case, Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. And it was a study brought in at the time. It was like, wow, epiphany. People have copied that thing over and over again. One of the most absolutely pure studies because it keeps being repeated and coming out the same. And that's kind of, talk about peer review. You get it anytime. That was used to overturn separate but equal in the Supreme Court, if that's what you're referring to. which I believe it is. And just recently, I posted something on Latinx kids, like I said before. I think you might have been there, and my God, they were the exact same way with a little bit of the little kid at the end of it. It's on my YouTube channel. Said, you know, something like to the guy, you're not very nice, and you insulted me. That's what she said in Spanish. You insulted me. And he said, why? Said, because you said I was Black. And that was like, damn.
Wow.
That was a little extra twist that they put in. Wow. And he was a brown child, but I guess he must have somehow, you know, and it was very interesting that they put that in at the end. You know, things haven't changed.
I think I told you about this, Kim, but I have a little girl in my class, and she's dark skinned and she is gorgeous, gorgeous. 4 years old, okay? And they were in the little housekeeping center playing, and you know, we have the multiracial dolls and everything. And I noticed she was upset, and I watched, and there was a little Black doll still sitting on the little couch, whatever, and the other kids had the different dolls. So basically, there were no white dolls available at the time. And so she was looking upset. I said, why are you upset? Well, I wanted that doll. I said, well, here's a doll right here. I don't want that doll. And I said, why not? Because I want that one, the white doll. And I said, you know, it broke my heart, because I'm like, there's nothing wrong with the color. And the crazy thing is, she's one of the darkest kids in the class. Her best friend is like light skin with curly hair. I think she's mixed race or something like that. And I think she somehow has developed some complex or something. And so every day I make it my point to tell her how beautiful she is, how gorgeous she is. She is. I mean, to me, she's like the most beautiful child in the class. And it shocked me to my core that she was so upset over a doll. Her face, if you could just see, it's burned in my memory. Her face was of such, she was so upset. Her eyes were watering. She was about to cry because she had to have the Black doll. It's like, oh, I'm stuck with the Black doll. And that's 4 years old. I mean,
that's about right.
3 or 4, 3, 4, 5. That's right.
But that's the explanation. That's what this system does.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know? That's what this system does. I mean, for many of us, this is why many have gravitated to light-skinned women. Some gravitate to white women as Black men because of the programming. We're talking about programming here.
Right. Everyone's programmed. Everyone. It's not just white.
Yeah. Once we understand.
Now, see, you split men up. I think a Black man can have any woman he wants. Okay, because we are men. So that's a man.
About programming.
Yeah, but
I can have anybody I want on the planet because I am a high value brother. Okay.
No doubt.
Thank you.
I will tell you this. My husband.
But your programming has been programmed.
Right. Roy, I hear you.
Oh, it's there. Oh, it's there. It's there.
My husband is dark skinned, and he would die if he knew I was saying this. But he doesn't know, you know, that I'm on here. But y'all, Roy, don't be looking like that. But
Roy's gonna tell him. I can see it in his eyes.
Issues with, he's dark skinned, and I love the dark skinned brothers. That's what I gravitate to. Okay, so it's weird to me when when he says stuff like, you know, like he has this thing because I'm lighter. I'm not light skinned in my opinion. I'm just like, you know, like that medium color, that in between. I'm just brown skinned, but I'm much lighter than he is, I guess. And the way he talks is like he loves that, and like it's almost like it's better. He doesn't, you know, I can tell he has an issue with that, the whole colorism thing. And so I tried to say no, and he always say stuff like, "Yeah, I bet you want them old pretty boy likes. I said, no, that's not my type at
He
all.
doesn't get it that you know.
I do not like pretty boy light skinned men at all. I'm not attracted to that kind of guy at all. And so I try to tell him, I was like, no, I'm attracted to you. I like my dark skinned chocolate black man. Leave it alone. Stop putting yourself down and making yourself, and I just think that's interesting.
He's so indoctrinated too, or something like.
I hate that because he is a beautiful black man, and there's nothing wrong with his skin tone, nothing. But I can tell he has a problem with it because he sees me somehow as better because I'm lighter and I'm more of a trophy to him. And I'm like, me?
You're like,
come on, T. T is a trophy.
I ain't all that. I'm telling you, I am not all of that. I'm telling you.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying. You're saying, like, to you, your status was raised simply because of. But you're also such a great, I adore you, T. But still, I know.
But this is how you know that this is a real conversation, because these are real issues, even within the Black community,
Absolutely.
for a number of reasons. And many people can equate the colorism conversation back to slavery, to when those that were lighter or were offsprings of the slave master were brought into the house.
They were in the house.
Treated better, and they ate better, and they lived better than those that may have been darker, like Tim or myself. We'd have been out in the field, and we would have had the worst of the conditions, and we would experience the brutality, so to speak, of the slave master or the overseer, and sometimes that light-skinned brother who was the offspring of the slave master became the overseer, therefore putting at odds the light skin and dark skin within our community.
Turning us against each other is exactly what whites want. They want us, and I say us because I feel like an us. I do.
But that's working.
It's working.
It's working.
Always has worked.
But that is working in the Black community. Yeah. Almost 28% of the divorce that are being filed by Black women against Black men. So it is working. Black women are enrolled nationally in colleges all over the United States. They're doing well in the education system.
They're the most educated people in the United States.
Right, but they're also having children and being single. And once they get past 40, they suffer from the same thing women suffer from. But the thing is, people are getting married later in life. But still, there's a problem within the Black community when it's coming to having relationships. And because usually the men is failing publicly, and Black women don't want a broken man. They want a man who's already achieved. They want that guy. But a lot of times that guy is not there. So it's really dividing. The government is raising our women and our children. And it's not a good time. And you would think women have it all. We have a woman vice president. Black women seem to have it all, but where's the Black man? They're not. You don't see that.
Can I ask a question, Tim?
Yeah.
Do you, and to Roy and to T, of course. I personally, as a white person, I can only think as a white person. That's what I am. So I blame all of this on the system and structure of white supremacy. I do. Every last bit of it. Now, sure, people have to take personal responsibility, but I'm sorry.
That's where the blame goes.
That's where it goes. This is the whole colorism, the whole everything.
But Kim, what I want to say is, and I'm not sure how many of these conversations you had, but you've got to be special for us to have this conversation. Because this is what my grandma would say. This is a family discussion. This is
No, I'm not special. I just think you're very sweet.
I don't know who Kimberly thinks she is, but she's family. She's been trying to. The jig is up. Okay, we know the deal.
These are very sensitive conversations in the Black community, but they're real and they should be addressed. And
we want her to pass this along. That's the deal.
Yeah,
it's great for me. Everything I've ever learned about racism, systemic racism, American culture has been through talking to my brothers and sisters who are Black, brown, and indigenous, and everything I've ever learned. Yes, I read books. Yes, I read articles, but the true feel, it's from you. That's it. It's I want to know. I'm not special. I just want to know. I want to get it so I can.
Kim, where did your family migrate from? I'm curious.
Jewish, New Yorkers.
I have no idea.
I'm talking about European.
Jews.
Yeah, let me think about this. Okay.
There's a rabbi on your thing there.
Germany, Poland, something like that.
Yeah. Prussia. Okay. Prussia, Russia, England. Prussia, Russia, England, Germany.
Oh, you're a mess.
We're just like a mess. We're just we are everywhere. Prussia, Russia, Germany, England, Austria, and one other place. I don't have my parents are only children. So I don't really have like
a big family.
No, yeah, it's really interesting.
My point of asking you that and having you answer it is that the majority of us can't answer that. Right. In America. The majority of us as African Americans.
I wanted to find out I could. How's that? And because and as for white people, can you explain, if you don't mind, for a minute, to white folks who are like, what is he talking about? You can't answer that. I know what you're talking about, but
well, the historically, once Africans were captured, we were captured from the western coast of Africa. Many were brought in to what we know now as the Caribbean. Some were brought in through the Gulf of Mexico into the port of what we know as New Orleans, and many more were brought into the ports of Jamestown and also South Carolina. And so from there, our communities were split up. And so there were various tribes, or a Fulani tribe, or a Mandingo tribe, or I believe Tim was alluding to this a little earlier, where we weren't just Black, we were tribal, we were a specific tribesman. So
Black was nothing, but it was, you were a part of a community.
Right, part of a community.
Absolutely.
And so once we got to America, we were brought together like never before, and pretty much forced to live and mingle, and unfortunately, and this is a whole nother conversation, the conversation of breeding.
Oh God.
Was brought about to perpetuate slavery for centuries. And so you now have a new creation within the African American. We can't tell you exactly who and where we came from unless we go into, the Henry Louis Gates finding your roots type of methodology. So we don't have that just from passed down knowledge.
Right. And what I think it's extremely important for white folks to understand, not to be, gruesome or sick, but this, we need to know this, that when people entered the Caribbeans, or they were kidnapped from their West Coast African homes, and their communities taken away against their will. And when they did this was all purposeful. When you enter somewhere, and I think white people really need to get this, and a lot of them don't, there's a way to create there's a way to break a person. And one way to do that is to humiliate them. And that was done. But another way to do it is to separate them from their culture, their language, their everything. They have nothing left, and break their spirit. And that is exactly, they had breaking farms where they would take the people before they were shipped over to the Americas or wherever they were going to be, and make sure they'd make a good slave. And we're talking, this was all purposeful. This was a system. There was no by chance. This was purposely done. They lost their name. They lost their religion. They lost their clothes. They lost their way of life, their language, their dress, their family. And so we have the only thing that they could do is somehow survive and come together.
Yeah, like people need to understand that in order for us to even possibly get any information, we have to pay a whole lot of money to get somebody, like he said, like Henry Louis Gates, to really dig deep and try to find that information. And there's no guarantee because of the way that, things have happened with us. So it's like, we can't just, and I go on Ancestry, but that ain't enough. I mean, that's still not really telling me much of anything. I mean, it says I'm a mixture of this, that, and other, but it's not really giving me any details. And I really want to know deeply more things. And it's a mess. And it's sad that we have to do that. We have to go and pay all this extra money just to find out who our ancestors were, where we came from, how this happened. And there's no guarantee because, once the diaspora happened, God knows where all these people, I mean, you can trace it maybe to a certain extent, but
Some
it's a
people get
mess.
lucky. Yeah, they can get
Yes.
lucky.
And we have to pay for that extra money, whereas white people can just go and say, oh yeah,
Mhm.
my so and so's from this. We could never do that. It's destroyed for us.
And not that
I think,
we did this too.
can I interject just for a moment?
Sure.
There's a few documentaries on the British were going back to see where they were brought from during the slave trade. And while they were doing theirs, they were doing ours as well. And they're saying the majority of slaves were Nigerian. And so we come from that area. So either you're a Nigerian Wolof or you're from Senegal within those areas. I'm going to Charleston this summer. I just inherited some land, and all the children have land, and that land came from slavery. And I have an acre, my aunts and uncles have an acre, and so on. And it's blood on that land. These people grew tobacco, cotton, rice, a lot of rice. And but the land that they own is dry, so that's a big deal right now. But they can easily take that by eminent domaining it, and taking even that part of my heritage, because slavery is my heritage. I'm a descendant from that, and as an American, we have to talk about that. And so I cannot say I was not a slave. I'm definitely of that. And we've been here for 400 years, so I consider myself indigenous to this country. Thanks, that's all I have.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's important for people to understand. And see, here I think this is where it's missing. Because for whatever reason, white America seems to continue to want to say, well, that was a long time ago. Why are you still holding on to that? Well, for us, we just shared with you, this is a part of our heritage. And Tim is sharing with you, he's just inheriting land from that point in time. And so it is a part of us. We would never tell you, Kim, to disown a part of your heritage for whatever reason. And so why tell us that we have to let go or forget our hair and move on from our head? No, this is a part of our heritage. Now, if a part of our heritage is being mistreated, and maybe it was maybe one of your ancestors was one of the ones doing the mistreating, we're not saying that it was you that did it. We know that. We understand that it was not
about guilt. It's about
right.
caring about your freaking fellow human.
But we're saying, why can't America give the African American the empathy that should be automatic to any group of people that suffered some of the things that we've suffered?
100% exactly. And I will go to my grave not getting it. I have no answers. It's psychologically disturbing that we have
that
to
would be
on
probably my last comment, because I got to get ready to roll.
Yeah, I gotta let everyone go. Thank you so much for including me in this amazing conversation.
And it was a good one tonight. Thank you.
Guys are amazing. We had a rough start, but we'll chop that right off and no one will know the difference. All right.
I'll get a better computer, guys. I promise. I'll get one of those little cheap $200 ones.
This is a real family conversation tonight.
What's that?
I said, this is a real family conversation.
You know what? It is honestly what I live for. I want real. I want to get this. I want to understand. And thank you all from the bottom of my, if I have a bottom, I don't know, of my heart, because seriously, you guys are sharing a gift of truth, and it helps me tremendously. And I hope to help other people to understand, because you know what? We're here on this planet for such a short time. We gotta be good to our fellow humans. We just gotta. There's nothing else. So good night. And somebody says, I am legend. Thank you. Oh gosh. Totally. I can't speak for everybody, but my honor, and you guys are amazing. And I apologize for all the technical stuff, but we made it. And thanks for hanging in there. And
have a good night, Kim.
See you next Sunday, I hope.
Yeah.
Or chapter 3.
It's been fun.
Right. Take care.
Good night.
You guys are awesome.
Take care, Roy.
Good night. You're so cute, Tim. Good night, everybody. Thank you for this. All right. Bye, T.
Bye.
Bye, Timmy. Tim, you're so funny.